Hello, it's Morgan. I'm a civil engineer from London. As part of Just Stop Oil, I'm occupying the QE2 bridge. We just survived the first night up here. We're up here until the government makes a meaningful statement to cancel all new licenses and consents for oil and gas extraction, because oil and gas is killing us now and it's driving millions into poverty.
It needs to be done because we act on behalf of life.
Morgan Trowland and Marcus Decker climbed the Queen Elizabeth II Bridge outside London to raise awareness about climate change. For 36 hours, they stayed on top of the bridge. For their peaceful protest, Trowland served 14 months in prison and Decker spent over 16, the longest sentences ever for a peaceful protest in the United Kingdom. Decker, a German national, is now being threatened with deportation. The United Kingdom is not the only government responding harshly to climate protesters. Many democratic governments in the global north are passing harsh new laws which restrict the fundamental right to peaceful protest and imposing heavy penalties, including prison.
In Germany, which considers itself a strong democracy, a very free country, we're seeing increasing charges against climate activists who are part of peaceful civil disobedience actions. I would say it's one of the most terrifying effects that we're seeing worldwide, as a climate crisis demands us to act drastically, radically, and promptly. We see governments being busy bullying climate activists.
The name Letzte Generation, which is the name of the group I belong to, translates to last generation. This name is derived from a Barack Obama quote, which was, I think, in 2015. We are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change and the last generation who can do something about it. Maybe the most dramatic response from German authorities to the peaceful protests of Letzte Generation have been house raids on the accusation that these people were a criminal organization.
To me, climate activists are like the canaries in the coal mines. We're not protesting for fun. We're not protesting to gain on a personal level anything except a livable future.
The escalating impacts of the climate crisis and frustration with governmental inaction are fueling protests. Climate protesters in many Western democracies are resorting to the kinds of peaceful civil disobedience used by the civil rights and similar movements.
This is no longer action against climate activists, this is action against democracies and the freedom of the people.
The way the authorities are looking at us is basically as a problem to get rid of.
They're hoping with enough repression we'll give up and we won't get any building of the movement.
Many of these countries suppressing these protests have repeatedly pushed other, more repressive governments to allow protests. This is because they know that the right to protest plays a vital role in democracies. Protests allow individuals to advocate for change, hold companies and governments accountable for their climate commitments, and engage in public affairs to drive sustainable solutions. Yet just when they should be welcoming public concern about the existential threat of climate change, they are acting like the autocrats they criticize.
Somewhere at the end of January 2023, I got arrested with 7 other Dutch citizens who are very much worried about the climate crisis. And that was because we posted online that we were gonna protest against fossil subsidies in Holland.
Sloot and his fellow activists were detained before the protest and later convicted of the felony of sedition for inciting others to commit a criminal offense. Other climate activists have been held in preventative detention to stop them from attending protests.
I was detained and brought to jail in September 2023. We were about 45 people arrested out of these hundreds who had been protesting in the state of Bavaria. The judge, he asked me if I was going to continue doing these protests, and as we affirmed that, we were sent to jail for the next 10 days.
At a certain point, I realized that nonviolent civil disobedience was what was going to raise the necessary level of awareness about the climate crisis.
Peaceful civil disobedience, which involves an act of deliberate lawbreaking, is recognized as a form of exercising the rights of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly under international human rights law. Any punishment should be proportionate.
Our version of climate protest is to disrupt the public, to call the public into the conversation.
We went into the museum with washable nursery school finger paint, and we approached the little dancer in her protective box, which no other children in the world have. And it was never our intention to cause any harm. There is a difference between creating the appearance of damage and actually damaging and injuring things. My hands looked bloody and Tim's were black for dripping oil.
Hello, friends.
And what these actions do is wake people up. It's designed to engage the public in their emotional centers.
We need our leaders to take serious action to tell us the truth about what's happening with the climate.
And then we were arrested as we were expecting to be. The first charge was conspiracy against the United States of America. The second was a felony damage charge for injuring a National Gallery exhibit.
We're just doing this for our children.
Each of those charges have a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a monetary fine of up to $500,000.
Please take climate action now.
The conspiracy charge equated me with the January 6th insurrectionists who stormed the Capitol, trying to overthrow our government violently with weapons and massive destruction. And what I did that day at the National Gallery is completely nonviolent for the common good, which is what civil disobedience is.
Joanna made a plea deal due to a debilitating health condition and was sentenced to 2 months in a federal facility. Tim Martin is waiting to go to trial. Some climate protesters face restrictions on how they defend themselves against criminal charges. In some courts, climate protesters are being prohibited from discussing the motivations behind their actions, undermining their right to a fair trial. Instead of prosecuting protesters, government should see climate protesters and activists as allies. After all, they have been more successful than governments in raising awareness about this existential challenge.
The fact is that climate activism is not something you're born into, but it's something you stand up to do no matter where you are in your life. And I would say, from all the years of activism and for all the thousands of people I've spoken with, the one really most powerful answer to desperation is action.